Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Today, every Democrat who holds office in the country woke up to the possibility of a primary challenge next year because of what happened last night in New York City. Zohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old state assemblyman, 3 terms, Democratic socialist, is going to be the Democratic nominee in the largest city in America, New York City's mayoral race in November. In fact, he'll be joining Jen Psaki at the top of the next hour. You're going to want to stick around for that. It's hard to see the results of this race and not take a step back and look at what this means, not just for the future of the Democratic Party in this country, but I would even say more importantly, the existential question of whether that party, the opposition party, the pro-democracy party at this moment, is up to the task that this moment demands. Mamdani's success last night tapped into the seismic dissatisfaction we see in poll after poll among the party base with the political establishment and status quo. The young Muslim immigrant born in Uganda, son of an acclaimed filmmaker and a college professor who came here when he was 7, toppled a multi-generational political dynasty here in New York, delivering a crushing defeat to the state's disgraced former governor, Andrew Cuomo. In hindsight, the knockout blow came during a televised mayoral debate a few weeks ago when Mamdani took Cuomo to task over his many, many scandals and for his steadfast refusal to just pronounce Mamdani's name properly.
To Mr. Cuomo, I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I. You should learn how to say it because we got to get it right.
Mamdani's margin of victory in the first round of New York's ranked choice voting was more decisive than even, I think, his most hopeful supporters were hoping for. And that's because he built a real coalition, multi-generational coalition of voters along lines of race and ethnicity, religion, class, who stood up and rejected Cuomo, and more broadly, I would say, the political status quo that he had come to represent. Now, at some level, it's a news story, but it's really important to keep in mind this is something we have seen before in politics. In fact, happens quite a bit. 2 candidates that come to mind that are the most successful Democratic politicians in my lifetime, Presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, both kind of, came out of nowhere, young, dynamic, shook up the establishment. In fact, in his endorsement of Mamdani today, New York Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler, who's been in office for decades, said that Obama's victories in 2008 were the closest possible comparison to what we saw last night. Now, of course, President Bill Clinton, President Barack Obama, they were very different figures, ideologically speaking, and even in their backgrounds, where they were coming from. But the key thing here is that, like Mamdani, they did represent palpably, even to voters that are not super invested in politics, an obvious kind of generational shift against the status quo, against the party's old guard, against the political old guard. Clinton and Obama were both considered long shot candidates when they first announced their intentions to run for the presidency. The 2 men managed to put together winning coalitions in large part by rejecting a party establishment that was seen as increasingly out of touch with voters.
Make no mistake, this election is about change. Change in our party, change in our leadership, change in our nation. I believe we need a new kind of leadership. Leadership not mired in the politics of the past. Leadership not tied to the old ideologies.
I recognize that there is a certain presumptuousness in this, a certain audacity to this announcement. I know that I haven't spent a lot of time learning the ways of Washington, but I've been there long enough to know that the ways of Washington must change.
Good at what they were doing, right? Talented. Now, for some reason, the Democratic Party sort of en masse seems to have forgotten just how important that is in politics, to run really genuinely talented candidates rather than handing the reins to the people who've simply waited their turn. That strategy has proven pretty catastrophic. I mean, Hillary Clinton is a talented politician in her own right. She won the nomination in 2016, but chiefly it was on the argument that it was kind of her time to serve. And she lost to Donald Trump. And then, despite pledging to serve as a bridge to a new generation of leaders, Joe Biden, again, who in his time is a very talented politician, made the shockingly short-sighted decision to run again in 2024 before dropping out the last minute and handing the nomination to Kamala Harris, next person in line, with a very short time frame. But even after those defeats, so many figures in the party establishment seem to still fail to get the message. It's how we got guys like South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn and Bill Clinton himself telling voters that a disgraced 67-year-old former governor is the future of their party instead of an outsider candidate who did really manage to inspire voters. Again, in politics, you gotta try new stuff, right? Like Bill Clinton did that. Barack Obama did that. Lots of different folks of different ideological stripes have tried it. It should serve as a wake-up call. The party needs to elevate voices from outside the establishment, elevate new voices. Bernie Sanders may have fallen short in the 2016 campaign, but he also had that kind of effect on certain cohorts, particularly young folks, a once-in-a-generation realignment with the Democratic base. And that campaign inspired a young bartender from the Bronx, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, to unseat an establishment Democratic congressman here in New York, which was also a crazy upset. That upset victory in 2018 in turn inspired Zohran Mamdani to run for the New York State Assembly 2 years later. To be really clear about how crazy this all is, right? Like what a big sort of out of nowhere win this was. A few months ago, Mamdani's victory would have been basically inconceivable. I mean, he faced a massive uphill battle to get where he is today. An Emerson poll from February of this year showed him with 1% support. 1%. He had to overcome a barrage of really ugly Islamophobic spheres, $25 million in negative ads, all due to his longstanding, unflinching pro-Palestinian politics and his criticism of Israel. And he also faced real skepticism from lots of Jewish New Yorkers who have seen anti-Semitic attacks in this city and vandalism, and who go to synagogues week in, week out with security watching over them. But Mamdani overcame the odds by running a really, really, really good campaign. And a huge part of it was just staying relentlessly laser-focused on one issue. Like Bill Clinton's "It's the economy, stupid," or Barack Obama's message of hope and change, or even Donald Trump's "Make America Great Again," right? Effective branding. Mamdani ran on one consistent principle: make New York City more affordable. And he also did an excellent job of finding voters where they are. His first viral video was a video outlining his plan to lower the price of a New York City staple, which is like food from halal trucks, which had gone up. He masterfully gained the attention economy from that point on. Much like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in 2024, he cast a really wide net, essentially never declining a media appearance, whether that was a conversation with the centrist Bulwark podcast, or an interview with an Urdu language news channel, or just a fun video with the popular internet talk show Subway Takes.
Do you make $1 million or more a year?
100% disagree.
So then your taxes are not going up. The only taxes that we are proposing are on the 1% of New Yorkers who make $1 million or more a year.
What are you going to do about the price of matcha lattes?
100% not sure.
I mean, they're $9. Dude.
I only want to make promises.
You can win this campaign easily if you lower the cost of matcha lattes.
I can only make the promises I can keep.
What Mamdani did in New York over the past few months shows that there really are solutions to these problems that have caused Democrats so much frustration and despair and sort of infighting since November's election. I mean, Mamdani thrived with young men and in immigrant communities across the city. Remember, this is a city that swung hugely to Donald Trump, this city, in 2024, just less than a year ago. Now, of course, Republicans are champing at the bit to smear Mamdani, to tie him to the future of the Democratic Party. In fact, in between his NATO meetings and travel, Donald Trump already posted calling him a communist lunatic. But again, New York's a strange, distinct place. It remains to be seen how much the specifics of Mamdani's campaign can be replicated across the country. It's also clear he tapped into something special.
We dreamt in the night, and we are now building in the dawn. That new day, the one that we have yearned for, the one that we have struggled for, the one that we have knocked for, have texted for, have called for, the one that we have obsessed over. That new day is finally here, my friends. And it is here because you have delivered it.